My camera's over here. Welcome to another episode of Let's Get Real with Money and Mindset. And today, Michelle is covering the topic of making a beautiful summer morning with your kids' routines and mom's circles. So that's our topic of the day. I hope you join us and feel free to put comments in the chat or questions. We'll be happy to answer those as we go along as well. And Michelle, I'll give this off to you.
Well, Shannon and I were talking about summer's coming up, and a lot of times maybe our routines get out of whack a little bit because of school year, or maybe we didn't even have one in the school year. So it's how do we make that summer more intentional? And again, the routine doesn't have to be the exact same as the school year, but depending on what you're doing and how you're doing it, you might want to rethink it and be intentional about it. And that's why we thought we'd bring this to you guys today, because it's really just that intentionality about it. How do we set that up? So maybe you've never had a morning routine and it's something that's completely new to you, or maybe you've had one and you didn't think about maybe adjusting it for the summer. And so we kind of just want to talk about those aspects a little bit. And so I want to go back to when we're setting up our morning. I'm sorry, I lost my chart in front of me. It helps me when I see things visually. But we want to ask ourselves, what activities are your ideal mornings? So again, in the summer, it might be different because you might be doing a lot more activities and more things. But what are the things that you want to get done before you have to leave the house? Or maybe it's that you're not leaving the house. So how do you set up your morning routine so not everyone's like at each other? Because that happens as well too. So the more intention, the more routine we still make of the day, it's easier for kids to know what they're expecting. So we want to start with asking ourselves, what are the things that we want to do in our morning? And so Cheyenne was pointing out, so when we start our day, so do we want to start with snuggling instead of going straight to breakfast? What things do we want to do? Do you want to go for a morning walk? Maybe you want to throw meditation in there. Maybe you want to throw a little bit of affirmations or things in your morning, but you want to have this conversation with your kids and kind of figure out what are some of the things that you want to do. What are some of the things that you want to do with your morning, Sharon? Because I know we're talking about that.
Yeah, so different things that I found out with my kids is they have actually asked to be woke up early because they love just being able to gently wake up and not have the mad dash out the door if you're still working or just running around with your morning. And so I made sure I planned enough time so I did my mom time before I woke them up, and then I would wake them up gently. I loved when my mother woke me up as rise and shine, sunshine. It's time to, rise and shine. It was so much better than having an annoying alarm or somebody dumping cold water on you or tickling you or whatever the alternatives are, right? But you think of how do you want to be woke up in the morning? And so I gently wake my kids up, and I've also encouraged them if they're getting up by alarm, which my oldest one does. He picks ducks. He likes the sound of the ducks quacking, whatever floats his boat. But it was better than having that alarm because I think we set our kids up for having anxiety when we're trying to stress them out with annoying sounds in the morning or the hurry up and get ready mornings. And what we found out, and I made sure I was talking through the kids, even at a very young age with this, is when we got up early and we did our routine in a gentle manner, the whole day started off on the right foot. We got the green lights. Even if we got behind the slow driver, it didn't matter because we were on time. But the mornings that I gave them a little extra time to sleep because it was late or whatever, or I got up late or whatever the circumstance, and we were rushing. Everybody was on edge. Everybody was in each other's bubbles. We hit every red light, got behind every slow person. Like if it could go wrong, kind of fell apart. But those mornings that we set up, beautiful. And it made for a better day.
I think it's really true is when we set up our mornings with that intention behind it, we have more organization, more things going on with the day. But sometimes in the summer, we might leave that lax, or maybe we just don't plan it out. And so what I did with my kids, again, is we went through with what are the ideal activities. And I love how you said with the alarm as well. It's like, we might want to ask our kids these questions. What way do you want to be woken up? And kind of go through some ideas. And the more we get the kids invested in this conversation, then the more likely they are to do these things. And so it's coming to that intention with them. So you want to list out all the things that need to be done before you need to leave the house. So if you're still working and they're going to summer camp or whatever, it's still similar to a school situation. So you still want to make that list of what you need to do. And then you want to put a time next to each of those activities. So does breakfast take you guys a half an hour? Does it take you 15 minutes? Like, it depends how your family runs on how long these activities do. That way you can backwards plan, and then you can decide, well, is that what time that they want to be woken up? What time do we want to wake them up? And make a plan for it based on the things that we want to get done before we leave the house, making sure all the stuff. And if we want to shave time off on it, maybe it's getting stuff ready the night before, picking out clothes, so that that's not an issue in the morning and a fight, because that can always, I will say, 2 days ago, I had a 45-minute fight with my daughter who decided that she wanted to wear shorts because we got out of the habit of placing the clothes out the night before. But in Wisconsin, where I'm at, because the weather is changing so drastically, there's some days they can wear shorts, but then that day was still 40 degrees. So I was like, no shorts. So then it turned into, because we didn't plan ahead. But again, the weather for us just keeps changing. So some days it's shorts, some days it's not. And all I want to do is wear shorts. And so it's can take away some of the alleviation if you do some of those things the night before. And we used to do that, and I will admit that was a lot easier. And then they got really good at picking up their clothes, so we kind of let that go. But now maybe it's time to bring that back when the things stop working, right?
Right.
And then some of the questions to think about is, how do we make these things easier for us? So for instance, if you need to be out the door by a certain time, we use Alexa, and you might find other ways or different ways, but on Alexa, you can set a song to play at that time every single day. So there's right now for the school year, there's a song for my son when he has to leave the house, because he leaves the house before the girls. And then there's different songs to get the girls transition through the morning. So I don't have to keep track of the time. And then they're used to it, and they get used to that time frame of how long it takes. So then now their bodies are like, Mom, the song's gonna come on soon. I know it is. And then because they're so used to that ching. So I use songs a lot. So maybe there's some transition, and then picking songs that work for your family. So one of the songs we use in the morning is It's Gonna Be an Awesome Day by Jack Hartman. And that kind of transitions us to on days when we do readings or meditations or affirmations. And a lot of times we'll do that. And it kind of goes in and out depending on what the kids want to do. And I want to be more consistent with that. So it's actually making me rethink and things. So we did do that a lot more consistently. But also having that checkout list for the kids. So for my kids, they hate to check things off. And I know some kids like stickers, some kids like that. For my kids, we tried all that for them. We tried the popsicle sticks. We tried all kinds of different things for them. It didn't work. So I just made a self list that just stays a thing where there's questions for them to ask. So if I ask any of those questions or they're walking on the door, they're never mad that I ask them, because they know that they're supposed to have done them. And so that helps for us. That when we first started, my littlest, I think, was 4. And she couldn't read the question. So it was like a big challenge for every day to make sure she went through them, and like she went over them. And so I think she learned them really well, because we really haven't modified them much. They worked pretty well for us. And so having those ideas of what works for your family, maybe they are sticker people, maybe they are check off kids, depending on, and maybe rewards, depending on what they want. The other things that help for us in the morning are like having a breakfast schedule. So like Tuesdays and Fridays are egg days, Mondays oatmeal day, Wednesdays waffles, like just taking some of the fatigue of the decision making out of the day, especially school days. But even summer days, if you want to get out of the house, or pre-had knowing, do I have to make lunch? Like if we're going to like the beach or something and lunch needs to be made or something. So having those ideas ahead of time and plan those out, and maybe like doing a week at a time in the summer to what your mornings will look like. Because again, it might be fluctuating if you're doing a lot of different activities with the kids and things, but planning that out before each morning would be so helpful in getting you to the door on the times that you need to get out the door. And again, it might be a little bit more adjusting in the summer, but then you can practice it and get into those routines of what the kids want to do, then to just transition into the school year and making a more structured schedule because you have a certain amount of time.
Yeah, I love the suggestion of, I don't have an Alexa, but I love the idea of the different songs for the different stages, because it makes my mind think of, man, when it's getting close to bedtime, it'd be great to have it just automatically come on with some calming music. I even like calming music in the morning rather than that mad dash rush into noisy sounds, but I'm very noise sensitive for different sounds. And so I love the thought of music. I've tried to figure it out on my phone, because like I want to wake up to a good song like that in the morning. I haven't figured that out yet, but I have to be careful with songs themselves as an alarm, because I did that for my phone ring one time, and I was just dancing around and like listening to it in the grocery store, and then went, oh wait, that was my phone. I have to be careful because I just like got into the beat of the song, was listening away. So I have to be careful on, what do for me, I probably would just start going doo 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 bop bebopping with the music and then forget I was supposed to remind me to do something. So, yeah, it sounds lovely though because I love music. So yeah, it's a great way to set your kids up because if you can set them up to take life in stride and go with the flow and plan ahead, because you can plan the structure that you like, the routine, but you want to make sure to allow enough time to just let them be in the moment and wake up. Because even like I said, my kids, they actually get grumpy at me if I try to let them sleep in a little bit longer, even though they have the time, because they want to get up and just be and just go with the flow and not have that push to be rigid on their time frame. And it keeps them more in a calm, relaxed state versus the anxious state of mind.
Yeah, I mean, think about what each of your kids are a little bit different. So, like, my daughter likes to read in the morning. My son won't pick a book to save his life in the morning. He'd rather just kind of, So, but kind of like get it into the routine, give them time to be able to do the things that they like, especially when they wake up and they don't have to go anywhere. But then think about the times though when you don't have to go anywhere and you just lay around too much, then you start to feel really sluggish. And if that's more of your summer, then that's usually the time about you start to feel sluggish is when the fighting starts to ensue because people start to feel bored or just like they just start to all of a sudden you can see the irritation start to arise in you and the kids. And so thinking ahead of those things and having maybe activities or things set up to like transition them into something else if you're home more of the days. But if you're going out, then you're giving that time to make sure that you are hitting that mark and not stressed out to get out the door, so that you have that time frame. And again, if you have some more consistency, like certain activities you're doing weekly or stuff, then you can make more routine. The more that you can make the routine for the kids, knowing that they have, like, say, an hour before they have to leave the door or before the activity starts, and just making that time frame consistent and still keeping them into routine, even in the summer, the easier it's going to be for you, and the more they're going to know what's expected. So they're not going to like all of a sudden be like, I'm bored. I don't know what's coming up. I'm getting irritated. My brother just poked me, which is going to happen anyways, but it's going to happen less the more we're intentional about it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But it's setting them up for life. If you're sharing your routine, because I always thought about that. It's like I knew my grandma had a really good routine, but I was never really taught that, and I was like, I wonder why they never passed that stuff down. And so it made me more aware, going, why aren't I showing my kids these things? So we have a lot of conversations, especially like I said around that morning, and why it's important to give yourself enough time instead of be rushing somewhere. And keeping that in, like you said, being intentional about how you're setting up your day. How do you want your kids to set that day up? And that's where I actually would get up a lot earlier just so that I could have my routine in the morning without having the littles. When they were little, they're no longer little, but when they were little, I could just have my time to read and journal and meditate and pray and those type of things, whatever suits your desires. But it gives you that time for you to calmly wake up, because even if I chose to sleep in, then the whole anxiety, because your kids feed off of your energy. And so when you're anxious and you're go, go, go because you let yourself sleep in and you're like, oh, I don't want to get up this morning. And then you're running around, your kids feel it. And that's when you get the poke the bear situations all morning long, or they don't want to eat, or they have the power struggles of what they're going to wear. They really feed off of your energy. So the more calm in state you can be, the more calm they'll naturally gravitate to that as well.
So I wanted to add to that is, especially moms, like, sometimes you hear about the morning routine and I got to do all these things. I need journaling, I need to do all this. Not necessarily. Okay. It's more about the intentionality of it and what works for you. So even if it's 5 minutes that you just do some breathing or just write down a few things you're grateful for, whatever works for you, then you face the day. It's more that you take the time just to set yourself up for what you need for that day. So if there's a mantra or something that really speaks to you, that you make that habit of doing that every moment, every day before you deal with the kids. And again, we're talking 5 minutes less, even a minute. and I know a lot of you have young babies and stuff. So the baby's crying and you got to move right away. But you can take 30 seconds to take 2 deep breaths before you address and just put yourself back into that, like, not like, because when you wake up and you're get woken up out of sleep because the baby's crying or something, you have that frantic feeling sometimes. If you just take a moment to calm and center yourself for 30 seconds, I know you need to get to the baby, but that 30 seconds can be the difference of how the baby might react to you, just knowing that you've calmed yourself down, and then the way you then go towards the baby. So you want to keep those things in mind, is it doesn't have to be. And so sometimes we do sleep in, and it's going to happen, or we don't get a good night's sleep. But just that intention of 1 minute before you face the kids to really feel like you have that sense of yourself, and then go. And we're not talking a long time. It's just intentionality behind it. And there was one other thing I was going to mention. Now I can't remember now.
Well, and I'll add on to that. What I realized is the more I started, I didn't add all the different things into my morning right away. I just did it piece by piece and just started waking up earlier and a little earlier to give myself that time to do it. And it came natural because actually the more calm and the more I set up my morning, the more naturally I'd wake up even before my alarm went off. And there were times I started getting up, like 4:30. It gave me plenty of time to be like, oh, I couldn't get up that early. Well, that's a mindset. Like, how bad do you want it? I wanted it pretty bad because I love my morning. I love, just having that relaxing morning. It meant so much more to me than 5 more minutes of sleep, because I realized that if I woke up at 4 and I went back to bed, I was way more exhausted getting up after having a brief nap, basically, than I would have if I just stayed up. But then I also gave myself if I have enough time at my lunch, I can take a little cat nap if I'm tired. Or there were actually times I got up at 2 o'clock in the morning and I had a whole bunch of stuff done, and I'd give myself the okay, especially like on a Saturday. Okay, I'm going to go take a nap. If it's 7 o'clock and I've got most of my list done and I'm tired, I'm going to go back to bed. But it actually made it so it was easier to wake up before my alarm and do that morning routine, but it didn't come overnight. Like, it was a piece by piece, giving yourself time. And if you fell off the wagon, oh, well, you just got back on. Like, it's not a do or not do. Like, it just, okay, you didn't do it today, well, make sure you do it tomorrow. And the more you do it consistently with that intent, the easier it gets to get there.
So I want to piggyback off that and ask, and just point out the things that we're looking for when we have those kind of mornings, right? Like, we're like, what does it mean? Like, how do we know if it's working or if we're feeling better? It's how we react. Instead of reacting during the day, that we're able to respond more. So a lot of people say, well, meditation doesn't work for me. Like, I can't sit still. Well, it's not that you're trying to get really good at meditation, blocking out all your thoughts. You're trying to get better at the day. You're trying to get better at who you are, so that for instance, I want to give this example of 2 days ago when as we were saying earlier, that my daughter was screaming 45 minutes about shorts. First, it was me and my husband, and you could tell he was just already angry. He's like yelling, and the yelling is not getting anywhere. And so I was like, okay, I was trying to pick her up, but she was like struggling so much that he's like, well, where do you want her? So he put her in her bed. She goes and takes off her entire bed, like pulls it apart, just like throws it. She's like, I hate this. I hate you. She even gets to the point of saying, I want to kill myself. Like, I don't think I need to be living. She got to that point, a 7-year-old. Again, this was 2 days ago. And so I'm just sitting there. And so I was like, how do I handle this? And I'm in the state where I can think about it, right? I'm not just, the yelling wasn't working. I know I wasn't that best when it was both of us, and it was just ganging up on her. We tried, like, she wouldn't even get dressed. So we had a tag team just to even get clothes on her. So she's dressed at this point, call that a win. And what I ended up doing was I ended up just sitting in her room on the floor against the door so she couldn't get out, closed my eyes, but she thought I was meditating, which I tried, but I really couldn't. But I was just quiet, and I could hear her thought process. She's like, fine, I'll make my bed back up. And she would try like 4 different times to put the mattress pad back on, and it kept pulling off on her. So then she'd give up and get mad again. And like, it just kept circling. She's screaming this entire time, but I wasn't reacting to her. I just kept sitting there inside, and she knew I was there. She knew I was listening. And then eventually she started talking it through. And then eventually she kind of asked for help in making up her bed, and we got her bed made. And next thing you know, she's fine. Like, nothing, like, she was just like, I don't even know what happened. I'm sorry, Mom. Like, I just really want to wear shorts. And like, but it's like, how do we Like that's going to happen at times. Like she's 7, like she's going to have these, but how do I respond to her is that's when I know that what I'm doing is working. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that more calmness when we're responding to the kids, because stuff is going to happen around us. Things are going to go chaotic. Things are going to happen. But like as problems come up, are we just trying to figure out a solution, or are we just living in that problem? Are we trying to ask for help, or we're just feeling sorry for ourselves, blaming ourselves, feeling like the victim? That's what we're looking for when we're saying, are our mornings set up? Are we setting ourselves up for success? Are we setting ourselves up for growth and things? And that's the key to all this mindset stuff is asking, it's trying to figure out if it's working. Do you enjoy more of your days? Are you able to have those conversations with your kids? Are you feeling more connection? And those are all the things we're looking for when we're talking about mindset. And we're going to keep going through that more and more. But I know we're running out of time today because we're going a little bit over actually. And I know Cheyenne has one last question for me.
Well, I was going to lead that into, well, I'll preface this with you're talking about those power struggles first with your child. One thing that helped me with my kids is I kept in mind the statement of, is this going to matter in 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days, 5 months, 5 years from now? And it helps me put in perspective some of those power struggles, doing that calmness of just walking away, or like you said, just sitting there calm and not reacting helps a lot. And some of it came down to, I embrace the cold. I've done the Wim Hof method. But the other side of it too is when they decide that I want to wear shorts. Okay, it's 40 degrees outside. Don't cry to me if you're cold. And I actually did that. My oldest, a couple of years ago, we went fishing and he did ice fishing. He did not select the best footwear for this. And I said, we're going to be out there a while. Well, yeah, but you're always telling us to embrace the cold. I was like, I understand that, but we're going to be out there for a while. It is cold. You need more than that. I'll be fine. I'll be fine. No, who ended up complaining about cold feet? It wasn't me. And I was just like, well, he's like, yeah, I should have listened. Sometimes it's kind of, you can tell a kid, and this was the lesson I hated the most when they were toddlers, was learning what hot meant. Is you can tell them, no, don't touch hot. But until they know what hot is, and sometimes it takes them actually burning their little fingers to realize, and then have the light bulb go, oh, that's hot, for them to get it. And sometimes they have to experience those things, even though, and then you're like, well, I was trying to help you avoid that, but you didn't want to listen. So sometimes it's not worth the struggle. It's like, okay, what would have the worst that would have happened if she would have wore shorts and gotten cold? She would have gotten cold. Maybe the next time you're like, well, it's not a really good day to wear shorts, but you want to be cold again. That's up to you. Then it helps them go, oh yeah, I didn't really like that experience. But it helps them take away that power struggle, because it does. In those, I've been in those moments where we all get heightened up here. They know you're triggered. Yeah. Everybody's triggered and, frantic, and it's just a power struggle. So what is it worth?
Exactly. And I agree. And if it hadn't already escalated to that point, I probably would have let it go. But then at that point, it was like she was screaming so much. And so again, though, it's like choosing which ones are worth it. And so for me, at that moment, was for me, after everything with my husband, it was at that point, like, okay, I know I need to calm her down. And how do I do that? Because it already escalated. And so we have both eyes, yeah, it would have been good if we just had let it go in the first place, but we hadn't. So it's like, and you think those things through and you're like, okay, because we're all human making mistakes, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, what do I do next? Right.
Right.
And I can't keep oh, I shouldn't have done that. And if you keep beating yourself up, that this even happened, it's like, just at this point, okay, this situation, how do I respond to it? What do I do? I got to move forward. I got to get her. I still have to get her out the door. Still got to get her to the bus. How the heck am I going to do that? And so that's, what I'm saying. So we have to keep those thoughts in our heads of just, where do I go with this every time? Because, and we can't just got to keep moving forward rather than focusing on what already happened.
Right. And sometimes it's once you hit that calm, and you'll find that balance of when it's not a battle and you don't even get to the escalation. But if it's gone through the escalation, what I found is having those conversations. Kids are super smart. They are more intelligent than we ever give them credit for. And I don't know how many times I've waited until that calm met and everybody cooled down. And then I apologize and like, oh, my behavior was not what it needed to be at that moment. And then help them walk through their emotions on what they were feeling too. So they start to recognize, oh, that wasn't very helpful. I'm sorry, Mom. or we hug it out, or use the Ho'oponopono, different tactics to help calm the energy, make them take deep breaths, even if they fight and laugh and whatever else. Like, just breathe with me, but I don't want to. Just shh, and
Well,
helping
now
them
you
recognize it
now
too.
that you say that, that's exactly what we had done, because she'd actually done this recently on a trip, and she didn't want to go on the activity, and then she had so much fun on the activity. So it's kind of like after she had this tantrum with the shorts, and I brought back that experience, that she's like, oh yeah, I would have really regret not going if I had like not done that. So then she's like, Mom, I don't really know what happened, like why I got so angry, and we were talking through that, and then we kind of were like, well, what is your body doing? And we kind of went through those questions and then she was like, well, I feel tense. And then so she started doing, so we start coming up with what can you do when you start to feel that way before it happens. And so we kind of went through all of that with her. And again, so I think it's the more we talk to them and the more we don't just try to jump in and tell them what they have to do, what they need to do, give them the time to cool down, and then have those conversations with them and figure out what is going to work best between you guys and what kind of agreements you can come to, and how does her body working, where's attention in her versus, I mean, each is going to be different for each kid.
Right. And that's where, like you were saying, and leading into our close, is the importance of your mom time to help you, like you said, have, instead of reacting, how to respond, how to stay calm in a stressful situations. Because kids are doing what kids do because they've got a lot going on in their little bodies, a lot of fear, and they live off of your calm energy. And so the more you can feed your own calm energy, the better they're going to figure out how to calm their energy as well. And so that leads us into what you have going on with Mama Circles and helping other women and mothers support each other through that. So why don't you tell us more, Michelle?
So I would just want to give you guys a little bit more about the purpose of a women's circle and a mama circle. However you, my wording's a little off today. But when we come together and we create a circle, where we, in the format that I use is we do a process where we do shares, right? And we don't actually respond to each other. We respond to each other with energy, and we put our hands up. Because what a women's circle is doing is giving you a chance to be seen, heard, and listened to. So we learn how to listen to each other, and we're always nodding, smiling, putting up hearts and stuff because we really feel each other. But then we want to send each other energy, and then we're learning how to receive as well. Because when people are sending energy, you're putting your hand and receive it. And I just learned this one is where you're putting it up to your heart and saying, "Thank you, I received that. I'm taking that into my heart." And that's the energy that we get when we come together in a women's circle. And so that's what, with Connecting Mamas, I'm trying to ensue in everything that we do, is that we use this format when we're learning and growing together. And that this is where we get our medicine and we support each other. And we really get to be seen and heard for each other and actually expressing who we are. And where we're learning that we do belong, where we're learning that we do feel each other and we can give each other grace, that we're not perfect. We're imperfect, but we're allowing each other give grace to be ourselves. And I think so much as moms, we hide behind, I don't have time, I'm too busy, I'm doing everything for everyone else. And so this is a chance to slowly turn that a little bit, because like I said, when my daughter's in there screaming for 45 minutes, it's like, where is that centeredness coming from? Where are you getting that energy from? You have to bank your own reserves, because if you have that empty cup and you're trying to respond from that empty cup, that's where the reactions come out, where the yelling and all that comes out. So the one thing as a mom that we can do is be that proactive in our toolbox and coming with connection and things that help us, because motherhood can be lonely if we let it be that way. If we say that we don't have time to do these things or time to connect, and we don't make time for it, because we all have the same amount of time. It's what you decide can you put yourself into the schedule you schedule the kids for, and make that a possibility for yourself. So I want to invite you to do that. I want to start by inviting you to connectingmamas.com and just hitting the free gift, which gives you everything we talked about today. Mostly is how to set up your morning. There's a whole bonus on your morning and then the kids' mornings on there, and that's what you get the free gift. But you'll also be signing up for the mailing list, and all the women's circles that are coming up, I'll be posting and emailing to everyone. So you'll get all the upcoming ones in the summer when you might need a place to be part of it and see something else. And so this will be your chance to do that. But you start off right off the bat by getting your summer started with that morning guiding and how to set up your morning, and then how to set up your morning with the kids and have that conversation in that free gift. And again, it's just connectingmamas.com, and there's a big button that says get my free gift. Click it and fill out your email, and it'll be delivered directly to you. And I'm thankful so much, Cheyenne, for setting this all up. And it's been a great chat today. And we look forward to seeing you guys next week.
Fabulous. And I love those women's circles. They are a beautiful way to start my week and end one and begin another. I love them. So they're
actually, how would before we leave, one last question, Cheyenne, how as you have participated in them, how would you describe a women's circle? What do you get? What is the benefit of them?
The connections, and I love because it's a free feedback free zone of just letting yourself be as you are, and there's such a calm energy and just a way to refresh from maybe a crazy week, and then you begin your week on that same calm energy feel. So yeah, it just brings in that calm awareness, that support, knowing you're not alone. We're all human. We all make mistakes. And that's why, that's why I apologize to my kids when my behavior steps out of line. I was like, oh, geez, I did it again, but then it also opens that up for them to understand that it's okay if they goof up because we're human, And I love that Mama Circle provides that freedom for moms to just reset for another week.
So just come to connectingmamas.com, click the free gift, get your plans to get your morning routine set up, and then you'll be on the mailing list to get all the upcoming circle events. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Bye, everyone.
You take care.